One of the challenges of life, I think, is that my experience is life is messy. Would that be a fair comment? Life is messy. It's great. It's better than the alternative. Well, no, the alternative, if you're a follower of Jesus, is that it's even better. But life is messy. I don't know about you. How many of you love organising things? How many of you are organised? Yeah, some of you are organisers. Okay. How many of you are almost like compulsive organisers? Don't. And it's like you want everything in its place, and there's a place for everything, and that's how you want life to work out, and that's how your bathroom looks, that's how your wardrobe looks, that's how everything should be, and that's cool. Organisation is important. It's great to be organised, but the more organised you are, the more frustrated often you get when life is interrupted by stuff. You know, you're trying to get it all nailed down, and we think that life is being interrupted by these events and accidents and circumstances, but the truth is it's just life. You're being interrupted by life. And because life is not like this perfect calm and occasionally something happens. Well, maybe for you it is, in which case please come and pray for the rest of us. It's kind of the rarity, it's the exception when you have those moments of perfection where, wow, everything is just perfect. I remember there was a day once a few years ago where I had that. No, but when you get in those moments of life, enjoy it, because life is static. It's not static, it's dynamic, it's fluid, and that doesn't last terribly long. And so this context is kind of important. The reason I say this is because when in a moment, we're going to dive a little bit into the life of Jesus and a particular incident. And some of the moments in Jesus' life that we have recorded, we really have only effectively 3 years of his ministry life recorded, and there was a whole lot of other stuff obviously happened we don't have record of. But even some of the stories we have, I don't know about you, but sometimes I find them a little confusing. And have you ever had those moments where you've gone, Jesus, why would you do that? Why did you do that? And so in John chapter 9 that we're going to turn to this morning, we have I think is one of the more unusual, unorthodox stories and incidents in the life and ministry of Jesus. But in it we discover how God works in real time and real life. It's a mess. It's a mess. And it's unorthodox what he does. So the subject this morning is from blame to opportunity. From blame to opportunity. So let's read John chapter 9, verses 1 through 11, and it says this. As Jesus went along, he saw a man blind from birth. His disciples asked him, Rabbi, who sinned, this man or his parents, that he was born blind? Neither this man or his parents sinned, said Jesus, but this happened so that the works of God might be displayed in his life. As long as it is day, we must do the work of him who sent me. Night is coming when no one can work. While I am in the world, he says, I am the light of the world. After saying this, he spit on the ground and made some mud with the saliva, and he put it on the man's eyes. Go, he told him, wash in the pool Siloam. This word, the word Siloam, means sent. So the man went and washed and came home seeing. Wow, that's pretty awesome. His neighbours and those who had formerly seen him begging asked, is this the same man who used to sit and beg? Some claimed that he was, others said, no, he only looks like him. But he insisted, I'm the man. How then were your eyes opened, they asked. He replied, the man they called Jesus made some mud, put it in my eyes, and told me to go to Siloam and wash. So I went and washed, and then I could see. Wow, it's a great story. But one of the things I like about this particular story, it's filled with kind of some messy stuff, some imperfections, there's these layers of tensions and different aspects in this story. It's in part, some of it's a little bizarre, a little crazy, and so it begins by, we read Jesus is walking along with his disciples, and they see a man who was blind from birth. And his disciples ask him a question, Rabbi, who sinned? Who sinned, this man or his parents, that he was born blind? Now, the context of this is important because there is a religious or theological view that if a person, was born blind or deaf or with some physical flaw, that person was being punished by God for either as a direct result of either their sin or their parents' sin or the family or something. But what I find interesting is that the disciples have now been with Jesus for some time, traveled with him, done a lot of stuff with him, but they still haven't actually picked up on the essence of who he is and how he thinks. So they ask, who sinned? And interestingly, they have this theological conversation in front of the blind man. Now, bear in mind, he is blind, he's not deaf. He can hear everything they're saying. I've got a friend who, his name's Ken, he's 75, 76 years of age now, was a high-level executive in an international company until his late 40s when he went totally blind. And but he and his wife are amazing people. He's an inspiration. He does a 5K park run every Saturday morning. How many of you do a 5K park run? He's done 10Ks in the Gold Coast Marathon weekend. He's done a 10K run. Has a runner in front of him with a strap, right, like just amazing. But Ken talks about the fact that often people will come up to him. They realise because he's got his guide dog or he's got a white cane, and they'll come up to him and go, "So Ken, how are you?" He's not deaf, he's blind. He's not intellectually disabled, but they feel like they've got to slow the language down or something, and he's just deaf. He's just blind. He's just blind. It's all right, I'll get it sorted. You can imagine this blind man. So he's heard about this Jesus, this Messiah, supposedly, that heals people, that brings sight to the blind, and sick people are healed. And so he's maybe a little excited, but then he's hearing this conversation from the disciples, and instead of saying, "Hey, Jesus, here's a blind man, here's an opportunity for you to reveal yourself. Here's an opportunity for you to show God's love. Here's an opportunity for you to demonstrate God's power. Here's an opportunity for you to love this man. Here's an opportunity for you to heal this man and cause others to believe." Instead of asking Jesus to heal, they ask him to give them theological insight about the man's condition. Wow. And sometimes it amazes me that I don't think things have changed too much in thousands of years. Sometimes we would rather ask theological questions about each other, about who's right, about who's wrong, about what the religious opinion is, about who's good, who's bad, rather than to actually ask God to help the person get better. So instead of accessing God's power, instead of accessing God's compassion, they just want God's insight. Who's right? Who's wrong? They want the religious opinion. And so I think Jesus takes us through this story. It's here for us because there's a sense in which I think he wants to take us to a place called sent, S-E-N-T. Remember, that's in the incident, Siloam means sent. And I want to suggest to you this morning, there's a place that God has and wants for all of us, for you and for me. There's a place of unique obedience for our lives. And the reason this is important is because that place called sent in our lives, that place of obedience in our lives, that place where God will work in your life in an unexpected way, doesn't look the same for you as it does for me or the next person or somebody else. God does not call us to conformity. We don't become a Christian and we have to put on a uniform. But sometimes I think we wonder, God, why are you not working in my life the way you seem to be working in other people's lives? And I think it's because God spends our lives working or teaching us how to get to where he is and where he wants us to be. And we're not talking about a geographical location. He's wanting us to get to a place, and maybe that place called sent that he's pointed to you or touched on your life is, I want you to go to the place where your attitude is better. I want you to go to the place where you don't get angry. I want you to go to the place where whatever it might be that he's working in our lives. And the way that begins is by moving from blame to opportunity. This whole conversation with Jesus was about blame. It was about blame. Who's responsible for this sin? Who did the wrong thing? Have you ever found yourself wanting to know who's to blame more than how to fix the problem? We live in a blame culture. We live in a blame culture. Always looking for who did the wrong thing, who sinned, who whatever. And I want to say to you this morning, if you live in that mindset, you will get bogged down in life. You will get bogged down in life. And I think a huge part of it is that humans often are driven to identify who's to blame. And again, I'm not saying that when people do wrong things, bad things, they shouldn't be held accountable. I'm not saying about that. But there's such a preoccupation. Oh, it was my mother's fault, it was my father's fault, it was my brother's fault, it's the pastor's fault, it's somebody else's fault. Sometimes it's not about a blame thing. And here's the thing, sometimes, like the disciples, we tend to think that that's what God's interested in. Because they were thinking, see, Jesus will want to know, Jesus will have this answer because he's interested in who's to blame. Because that's the religious view. That's the religious opinion. They think that Jesus is going to want to talk about blame rather than opportunity. So they begin the conversation around blame and who's to blame for this. Wouldn't it be amazing if we stopped trying to figure out who's to blame and started asking, what's the opportunity? What's the opportunity? Instead of asking, and it'll come up on the screen, I think, instead of asking, who caused this? Ask, what can we create out of this? That was the earlier, yeah, you can go to the next screen. And the next one. And the next one. Okay. Yeah, somewhere down there. That's the passage we read. Okay. No worries. I mean, instead of asking who caused this, ask, what can we create out of this? Because if you stay locked into the blame game, you never move forward. It's a quagmire. It's the old saying, if you handed lemons, you make lemonade. And so Jesus responds to the question with a very different response to what probably they were expecting. He says, neither this man nor his parents sinned, but this happened that the works of God might be displayed in him. Now, that phrase I think has often been misunderstood and sometimes causes people to that misunderstanding causes people to believe that God is this almost malevolent, nefarious creature that puts bad things on people so that he can show off. That's not God. That's not God. And I think what he's actually trying to tell us is this, that we need to move from blame to opportunity. Instead of asking the question, why did this happen? Who's to blame for this? To ask the question like, what's God trying to do in the middle of this? What could God do in the middle of this mess? Doesn't mean it's not a mess. I mean, this guy's life's a mess. He's a blind man. What could actually come out of this? And if you put God's mind into this, whatever this broken situation is, into this mess in life, this mess of life, what could God do if we could see from his perspective? If we could see from his perspective. Because I want to say to you, very often the message is in the mess. Oh, I hate that. But so I would like life to be perfect, no problems. If I was God, it would be very different. Mind you, I don't think that would work out well. Jesus tells us, as he's talking to the disciples, that as long as his day, he must do the work, and we must do the work of him who sent me, he says. He's saying that God is actually working in the world. God is working, and he's relating it to this situation. Hey, God's at work here. This is an opportunity, he says, for the works of God to be manifest, to be displayed in this man's life. And they don't realize, but part of what God is working at is also their perspective, their attitude, and he's trying to change their framework. He's trying to change the way they think. And by the way, God does that with all of us. I mean, I know we're all right anyway. I thought it was wrong once, but I was mistaken. Now, how many of you know that God's always at work changing our framework? Our thinking needs changing. And before God can actually change your circumstances or your life, very often he has to change your perspective. Because you'll never change the way you live life until you change the way you see life. So he's trying often to change the way you look at even the problems of life. And it's not about who's to blame. It's not about the mess that maybe you're in. It's what is the message that God is wanting me to receive in the middle of this? What's the opportunity? The message is in the mess. I was reflecting on this a couple of weeks ago. And I would say, and I could, I won't take time now, but in fact, it may well be a message that I put together, develop, a preach. But I could say now that probably 4 of the most profound God encounters, or not encounters, but messages to my life, revelation to my life, have come in the deepest, darkest times. The times of most challenging mess and profound challenge in my own life, in the middle of the mess. The message very often is in the mess. Have you ever prayed a prayer like, God, do something miraculous in my life? And something huge, and then everything goes wrong. Have you ever prayed that? It's like, oh, God, you misunderstood my prayer. Or you didn't hear. I was wanting you to do something miraculous, and then this happened. My whole world fell apart or collapsed or whatever. And you ever prayed a prayer and it's like the opposite happened? Sure we all have. Because many times I think we don't realize that for prayer to be actualized in our life, he has to change some things about our lives. We want prayers answered. We just want the thing. We want God to answer prayers without it affecting us, changing us. It's like, just give me the gift. Give me the whatever it might be. You ever prayed for greater faith? Because this is what happens. If you pray to God for greater faith, the only way you can get greater faith is for him to give you greater challenges. That's how faith works. Sounds so spiritual. God, give me greater courage. Yes. Then he's got to give you some greater challenges. God, give me greater wisdom. And then you find yourself in a bigger mess because that's how you get greater wisdom. I was 19. I remember praying. It was a weekend church service, and I was genuinely, God, I want to be more patient. I want to be more like Jesus. I want to be more patient. And there began a week of hell. And one of the things that happened, and this was just one, but during that week, so I was working in the city in Brisbane, in Fortitude Valley. I lived out at Ashgrove. And some of you that are familiar with Brisbane many years ago, there was a place called the Normanby Five Ways, which was a major intersection. And so I'm just before that. It's a Friday afternoon. It's 5 o'clock. It's pouring down rain. And I run out of petrol. And people are not very gracious. Anyway, so I have to get out. There was a servo about half a mile up the hill towards Red Hill. I trudge up there, pouring rain. I'm soaking wet. Get petrol, come back. I mean, obviously, didn't happen then, but I probably would have been on the traffic report on the radio and on the news that night. There was a major delay this afternoon at Normanby Five Ways. Some idiot ran out of petrol. Anyway, it was. But I prayed this prayer, God, teach me patience. And that week, everything went wrong. I'm very careful these days about what I pray. Very careful about what I pray. So in this moment of, back in the story, the moment of Jesus and his disciples, it was an incredible learning opportunity. And they're learning here how God deals with real life and real mess. And by the way, have you ever found yourself learning a lesson over and over again? Somebody once said, and it's stuck with me, I think it's a great saying, you learn nothing from the second kick of the horse. You're just a slow learner. But sometimes we do go around in circles. Pastor Peter told me that grade 5 was the best 3 years of his life. No. Let me just say, you don't have to go over the same lesson over and over and over again. Be a quick learner. Because God's very creative. You ever found that? He's very creative. He has ways to achieve the ends. And part of what Jesus wants to do in us is not only release us from a blame mentality and look for opportunities, because stuff happens in life and sometimes it's been our fault, but sometimes we get blamed. And I just sense through those of you even here that you carry blame, and one of the things that Jesus came to do was set us free from blame. Stop blaming yourself. Deal with whatever you need to do, but don't stay there. Some of you need to be released from the blame that other people have tried to put on you. So let's just move on a little bit in the story. So as we read on, so it gets even more interesting. So Jesus, we read, spits in the dirt. And he made some mud with the saliva. And then he puts it on the man's eyes. And of course he tells the man, go to the place called Siloam and wash. Now, when I was a young pastor, a couple of years ago, when I was a young pastor, I remember the first time it really struck me, and I'm thinking, I'd read that story many times and thought, actually, that was pretty gross, eh? And I remember thinking, wow, that's pretty ordinary. Like he spits in the dirt, and by the way, and he makes mud and puts it in the man's eye. It's like, have you ever stopped to think? And this, if you get nothing else, try this. You can go home. How much spit it takes to make mud? It's like this was not a dainty spit. This was like a man's spit. I mean, this was, and I remember all those years ago when that dawned on me as a young pastor. So I looked up commentaries and all sorts of things, and I remember hearing one American preacher talking about this, and the preacher saying, this was divine spittle. Now, I know God was fully man, fully human, but this was human spit. This was human spit. And I often think, oh my goodness, and picture this, the blind man. Again, he's blind, he's not deaf. So I'm not going to even contemplate sound effects of what's happening. But at the very least, the crowd would be making commentary. The people would be, what's he doing? Jesus doing? Oh, look, he's spit in the dirt. And now he's making mud. He's making mud. And oh my goodness, what he's got on his fingers. He's walking towards the blind man. If I'm the blind guy, I'm out of there. Seriously. I don't know that I'm going to cooperate with that. And by the way, and I don't want to, get too, if I call it saliva, maybe sounds. We have this weird relationship with spit. So right now you've got spit in your mouth. That's perfectly normal. And you're about to swallow it, and now you're aware of that because I've just drawn your attention to it. But that's perfectly normal. But the moment it leaves your mouth, it's no longer yours. It ain't coming back. Like it could be anybody's. Like you don't go around testing your spit. It's like we have this weird relationship with spit. And of course, it's an offense to spit in public. It used to be those signs when I was a kid. You remember no expectorating allowed. I used to think it was to do with expectation, but then realised that it was a kind way, nice way of saying spitting. No spitting allowed. You spit on the sporting field, you're off. You may be banned for life. So it's not acceptable. And in Jesus' day, it was even more so. It was even more so. The fact it was one of the most humiliating, demeaning things you could do. And so what he's doing, this is bizarre. So he spits and makes the mud. Then he says to the blind man, go to the place called Sent, go to Siloam and wash. And this again is interesting. The man's blind. I guess he knows where Siloam is. But Jesus doesn't even say, oh, Thomas, can you call him an Uber? He doesn't even say, like, oh, Nathaniel, here's your opportunity to get your name in the Bible, because it ain't going to happen again. Would you guide this guy to the pool? No. It's like Jesus said, I'm done. My part's done. You go and wash. And it's like, wow. Doesn't even organize. It's challenging. It's challenging. So he just says, go to the pool and wash. And it's almost like, I'm done. Now it's up to you. How many of you know that God will do so much and then it's up to us? It's up to us. He had to, think about this. He had to trust in the character of Jesus to go to the pool. Because when you read this, Jesus didn't even say, go and wash and you'll be healed. He didn't say that. There was actually no implication that anything good was coming. And so the man really has to trust Jesus. So I think that for many of us, a couple of things here. One, we keep waiting for better circumstances and better material than spit and dirt for God to do something extraordinary. And I think one thing he's showing us here is that God can take the basest of things, spit and dirt, and do the miraculous. So what can he do with us? What can he do with us? You're better than spit and dirt. What can he do with you? And so the man gets to the pool, the place called Sent, place of obedience, and it's there finds his healing. I wonder how many of us are between the place of encounter with Jesus, meeting Jesus, and getting to our place of obedience, whatever that looks like for us, and then wondering why God isn't coming through the way we expect him to, because we haven't yet gotten to the place called Sent. So we have to trust God to move forward, to walk forward even in our imperfection, even with our issue, even with our problem. The blind man had to do this journey while he's still blind, but he had to move towards the place of obedience. And then he was healed. And you have to trust, I have to trust that the miracle you need will be found in the obedience that God is waiting for. So there's one other interesting dynamic in this story. What time do we finish, Pastor Peter? When am I? That's good, because it's really a rhetorical question. Wouldn't make any difference, but it's polite to ask. So there's this other really interesting dynamic in this story. So, and some of you kind of chuckled, and I picked it up when I read this in the scripture before. It says this: his neighbours and those who had formerly seen him. So he goes home and he can now see. And so his neighbours and those who had formerly seen him begging asked, isn't this the same man who used to sit and beg? And some claimed he was. Others said, no, he only looks like him. But he himself insisted, I'm the man. No, it's me. It's me. I mean, seriously, the only thing that's different about him is that now he can see. People get mindsets. Isn't it funny? I saw this interview last year of Rowan Atkinson. How many of you are familiar with Rowan Atkinson? How many of you, some of you don't know Rowan Atkinson? How about Mr. Bean? How many of you are familiar? Okay. So Rowan Atkinson is the actor who played Mr. Bean. He's one of the most intelligent men on the planet. It's actually a really, really from what I've seen in interviews, a wonderful man, very wise, very intelligent. So he tells the story of going into a car spare parts shop, and so he's in there waiting for, how it works in a car spare parts place. They go to the back, the part you want's right at the back of the warehouse, and anyway, so he's waiting there for a while, and there's other people there, and there's one guy keeps looking at him. And eventually the guy comes over him and says to him, "Has anybody ever told you that you look exactly like the guy who plays Mr. Bean?" So Rowan Atkinson, and he's a humble guy, he doesn't need to, he says, well, actually, I am the actor who plays Mr. Bean. And the guy goes, yeah, but have you ever thought that you could make a lot of money impersonating him? Like, he cannot get his head around the identity that this is the man. This is the man. And this story goes on. He cannot convince this guy that he is Rowan, that he's Mr. Bean, that he's the actor. It's a bit like, do you ever watch Superman back in the day? So Lois Clark is in love with Superman, Clark Kent. And but when he becomes Clark Kent, the reporter, I mean, the only difference apart from not wearing the suit and the cape is that he's got glasses on. I never thought the glasses were that good a disguise. How come she didn't recognize it? But what happens is that people get a mindset about a person's identity and see them within a certain frame. And have you ever, maybe you've been on the journey for some time as a follower of Jesus, and God's changed stuff in your life, but then maybe you go back to people and you're with people, it might be family, or it might be other people that knew you a long time ago, and they still see you as you were. They don't see you as who you are now. And sometimes you find yourself even acting like you used to because they kind of lock you into that box when you're with them. And I just want to say to you this morning, listen, don't let your history or your past define you. Don't let your history, don't let your past define you, because people will define you by your imperfection. They'll define you by your past. They'll define you by the things, the flaws and the faults. And let Jesus take you forward. Don't let people define you. Don't let your history define you. So I love what he said. He said, no, I'm the guy. It's me. I'm the man. And then they say, so how were your eyes opened? And he said, the man they called Jesus made some mud, put it in my eyes, told me to go to Siloam and wash. And he says, so I went and washed, and then I could see. Simple. Simples. It's great. Wow. So in the mess of life, sometimes to move forward is comparatively simple. It's move from blame to opportunity. Understand that the message often is in the mess. This is how God works in real life. Stop waiting for better circumstances or a better material. Start moving towards the place where God wants you to go, whatever that is for you. And trust that the miracle to meet you in your obedience, and then just tell your story. That's what he did. Just told his story. And I wonder if a team could just come up as we finish this morning. But this story doesn't make any sense. It doesn't make any sense. I mean, it's why I said at the beginning, it's a bit of a bizarre story. Spit, dirt, mud, blind man, can't see, go to a place, no help. People then don't recognize him or choose not to see him for who he is. Doesn't make any sense. But then, I think the gospel doesn't make sense. I mean, how could someone that lived 2,000 years ago, died on a cross and rose again from the dead, how could that person change you? How could that person make you new? How could that person free you from guilt and shame and blame? How could that person fill you with hope and meaning and give you a future? How could that person teach you how to enjoy life and live it in abundance? You don't have to explain the details. I was talking with somebody in the last day or two, and we were just talking about the fact that the person with the experience is never at the mercy of the person with the argument. It's when you know that Jesus has touched you. When you know, people are worried, and there are genuine concerns about AI. I mean, it's like so many things in life. It's incredible possibilities for good. It's amazing. But there's a potential dark side and concerns. But, the truth is I'm less afraid of artificial intelligence than I am of human stupidity. And because AI, for all that it can do, AI can never get into your soul and change you, but Jesus can. AI can never get in and replace the hate with love, and replace the bitterness with peace, forgiveness. AI can never get inside of you and replace the despair with hope and sorrow with joy. Only Jesus can do that. Only Jesus can do that. So when you come to know him up close and personal, you kind of realize this is what my soul has always been searching for. In all the mess of life, in all the stuff. I mentioned this, I think, in my last time I preached here, about being at that concert, Paul McCartney concert a couple of years ago, which was phenomenal. Just lights, laser, music, sound, fireworks. And the next morning I'm in a church, probably about the size of this. And no disrespect to the team, but the lights weren't as good. There was no laser, no fireworks. Even the vocalists weren't as good. No disrespect to the team. The musos were good, but not like the night before. But I'm standing there in the front row before I get up to preach. And I'm going, there's something here that wasn't there last night. It's the presence of God. It's the presence of God. It's the presence of God. Only he can touch and change our lives. So I want to, as we close this morning, I do want to give opportunity, always do. If you're here this morning and, maybe you've never said yes to Jesus. Maybe you've never crossed the line of faith. And this morning you're ready to enter into a relationship with God who loves you. You're here. If that's you this morning, you're here in the purpose of God. Not an accident. Maybe somebody invited you. Maybe you made your own way. Or maybe you have previously crossed the line of faith, but you haven't really been walking with Jesus. And maybe for you, there's a place called Sent that he wants you to move to, where you'll know his presence, you'll know the miracle in your life. And just for a moment, if you just bow your head, just close your eyes for a moment. And if that's you, I'd love to just pray with you before we close this morning. Anybody here that either for the very first time or to recommit your life to Jesus? Anybody here this morning? Just give me a wave very quickly. If that's you, if God's spoken to you and you either for the first time or to recommit, I always give this opportunity. Okay. It's good. You all love Jesus. You all know him. But I don't need a word of knowledge to know this morning and to encourage you. Some of you need to be released from blame. Some of you need to move from blame to opportunity. You need to change the way you see life. You need to stop asking the religious questions maybe and see what's the opportunity that God has in this space, in this mess, in this situation. Let me pray. Father, thank you for your presence right now in this place. You know the story and the journey of every life. You know the messes we've been through and maybe even the mess that we might be in even today. God, you've got something to say to us and something to do in us, even in the middle of the mess of life. I pray that there would come revelation and a soft heart toward you, even in the middle of the journey, I pray. In Jesus' name, amen, amen. Thanks, Pastor Peter. Thank you.